You're listening to the Telltale channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. A pastor from the group called Warriors for Christ just filed a federal lawsuit claiming his daughter's rights were violated because she was sent home from a public high school in Tennessee for wearing a shirt that said homosexuality is a sin. This is a quote from the pastor, Rich Penkoski. "My 15-year-old is thrown out of school for the day for wearing this shirt. Hashtag LGBT wants to trample on your hashtag free speech rights while they cry for special rights. Hashtag Warriors for Christ, hashtag pride, hashtag homosexuality, hashtag Bible." Oh my God, how many hashtags are you going to fit in there? The article goes on to say, quote, "Principal Richard Melton reasoned that his daughter's shirt was prohibited because its message featured a sexual connotation. Responding to that explanation, Penkoski noted that one of his daughter's teachers has an LGBT pride sticker displayed in his classroom featuring the rainbow colors associated with the LGBT movement, which pushed to make same-sex marriage legal across the U.S. Hemant Mehta commented on this, pointing out that wearing a shirt that said John 3:16 wouldn't be a problem for students, but wearing something that intentionally attacks or invalidates people based on immutable characteristics like race, gender, or sexual orientation is really the core of the problem. This kind of thing isn't always clear-cut legally speaking, so we'll have to see how it plays out. Some of you may not know who Mike Huckabee is. He's a pastor who served as the governor of Arkansas from 1996 to 2007, and he ran for the Republican presidential nomination in 2008 and 2016. His daughter, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, was also Trump's press secretary for a while. Well, he went on something called the Intercessors for America recently. He made an appearance at an event they call the monthly prayer call, where he had this to say, quote, "This is very, very crazy kind of stuff we're going through right now. And if people don't recognize it, they may say, well, yeah, but it's a pandemic. But if the government will tell us what we can do during a pandemic, and we all follow along and march in line, then when and how long will it be before the government will tell us that we can't continue to meet or sing or pray, and a pandemic has nothing to do with it? Please don't think that this is an alarm that doesn't have substance. It does. So there are many fundamental issues today that really matter more than they've ever mattered, because you've never had the policies that are directing these two parties, two candidates that are so divergent. And if Christians sit this one out, and then one day they say, hey, how come my gifts to the church are not tax exempt? Hey, how come the church is being taxed and we're now having to pay property tax on the church and we can't afford that, so we're going to go out of business? How many things like that start happening? And people will say, well, this is not right. And I'm going to say to them, yeah, you didn't vote. That's why it happened. Oh my God, it's so hard to read something that somebody said verbatim. Like, people just structure their oral arguments differently than their written arguments, and that was just a mess to read. When you're dealing with a massive community of people like we do in the US, with around 350 million people, it requires a lot of oversight. It requires politicians and policemen and firefighters and community organizers and legislators and representatives of all types. This massive community of people require roads and bridges and construction and schools and all kinds of shit. That's just how it is. We all live in society. We all benefit from it. We all owe money to the communal pool of funds. Paying taxes is expected. It's a requirement. And I'm personally okay with paying taxes. The government can expect, say, 15% of my money every year. It's pretty much the same for everybody, give or take. Except churches. They don't pay the price for being a part of society. They get to live here for free. They don't have to put anything back. They get to take and not contribute anything back. Nothing of value anyways. And as far as Huckabee's claims go, did he really say he thinks Christianity is going to be banned by the US government? Lots of U.S. representatives are Christian nationalists. You could knock me over with a feather if that happened. Besides, nobody wants to stop churches from meeting. Nobody's even suggested that through all of this. We just want them to stop meeting in person. We want them to do it online. I know we aren't necessarily putting our best and brightest in pastors' positions, but I expect some level of critical thought from these people. I guess I was asking too much. Years ago, there was a famous movement in the US called the Satanic Panic. If you're about my age, you probably know of it. It started with a woman who claimed to have been subjected to satanic ritual abuse, as she called it. Basically, some people in her life captured her and put her through some satanic rituals. Turns out the entire thing was made up, but it didn't matter. It got pastors across the U.S., including Jehovah's Witnesses, fired up into a blood frenzy over fear of Satanists and their sinister plans for Christians. Well, guess what? We have our very own satanic panic taking place all over again. Frederick Joseph tweeted about an Airbnb location he stayed at last week, which apparently had some strange objects lying around. Here's what he said, quote, "We just drove 3 hours, my 8-year-old brother, for a getaway, and the house we arrived at ended up having seemingly satanic items and stuff for witchcraft rituals. We had to leave because my brother and the rest of us were frightened, but Airbnb won't refund me." Do people really believe this shit? Do people really believe people who worship Satan are waiting on the sidelines to capture innocent Christians, perform a ritual, and turn them away from God? This is ridiculous. Apparently, the objects were a picture of a topless woman, a spooky Halloween candle, a wind-up toy of a cartoon dog sleeping with a woman, and a small statue of Baphomet from the Church of Satan. But the moment he saw something that pointed towards Satanism, he started seeing it everywhere. A commenter on the thread said the outdoor tub on the property was convenient for bloodletting outside and washing away evidence. What? Bloodletting? You cannot be serious. People turn into complete conspiracy theorists when it comes to religion and politics. It's outrageous. Well, the Church of Satan's official Twitter account responded to the tweet thread with this, quote, "The photos in this thread depict thrift store curiosities and hot topic kitsch. Not even evidence of satanic rituals. Sounds like you have an overactive imagination and can't tell the difference between supernatural horror movies and reality." In another tweet, they said, quote, "If you aren't comfortable with various personal aesthetics, you should stay at a hotel, not someone's house. Some religious people have to get a grip on their imaginations. This is getting out of hand." This week on the podcast, Pastor Steven Anderson of NIFB fame, pastor of Fellowship Baptist Church, was banned from YouTube a while back. And not just YouTube, but he was banned from entering the borders of 34 countries, including but not limited to Canada, South Africa, the UK, Jamaica, Ireland, and the Netherlands. I've talked about the NIFB on my main channel before. They are very extreme. They're a very hateful and truly dangerous sect of Christianity. They've called for violent action against more than one group. And that's why I'm okay with deplatforming them, specifically the violence. Well, guess what? He found a way around the YouTube ban. Big surprise. I figured this would happen. You can go to his church's website and find links to the sermons, but the sermons have been appearing on 8 different YouTube channels over the past few months, mostly small channels with almost nothing else to be found. The names of the channels are J-Tan Kentor 2000, I Baptist, The Son of Uri, Daily Baptist, Jonah 3.2, Serves Flame Zone, and others. This dude is really bad. On Twitter, my bio has a quote from Noam Chomsky. "If you don't believe in freedom of expression for those you despise, then you don't believe in it at all." And I stand by that until they start calling for violence. That's where I draw the line. And that's a line Steven Anderson has crossed, and continues to cross daily. But that's not where the story ends. Turns out, after Hemant Mehta posted about this on his website, every one of those YouTube channels got deleted, and Anderson is not happy about it. We're going to take a look at what he had to say in response. I've mentioned Pastor John MacArthur on here a couple of times before. Well, he's back in the news. He's been celebrating the fact that he packed a ton of people in his church with no masks for a while now. Well, a judge issued a preliminary injunction against the church. The county permitted the congregation to gather, even indoors, as long as they wore masks and socially distanced. Guess what? They didn't. Here's a quote from the judge. "The church is violating various health orders through its indoor worship services. The church's continuing violation constitutes a public nuisance per se, as the county has no adequate remedy at law. Injunctive relief is warranted to prevent ongoing violations of the various health orders. While the court is mindful that there's no substitute for indoor worship in the spiritual refuge of a sanctuary, the court cannot ignore the county health order, does not dictate a ban on worship. Instead, it provides any worship must take place other than indoors." The county health order allows worship to occur outdoors, virtually through the internet, and in any manner that is not indoors with a large gathering of people. This feature of the county health order mitigates, but certainly does not eliminate, the harm that will be suffered by the church congregants through restricting their indoor worship. Like the Court of Appeal, when considering the stay, the court finds the balance of harms tips in favor of the county. I'm not religious, obviously, but maybe that's why I don't get why this is such a massive fucking problem for people. Why is it so fucking hard to hold services outside? Why is that so hard? I don't understand. What are you gaining by holding it inside, other than COVID-19? They just want to be contrary, at the expense of people's lives. That's it. And for the record, he said he's ignoring the orders anyways. I hope these churches are fined out of existence for what they've done by making this public hardship even harder for everybody.